morning. This is Anna Patterson with the North Carolina Housing Coalition. Thank you for joining us this morning for our housing call. And without further ado, I will turn it over to our Director of Housing Policy, Stephanie Watkins Cruz.
Good morning, everyone. I hope you all are having a great week so far. It is another busy week for us. Some top items for today's call is the appropriations process in the General Assembly resumes this week in the House. And we have some updates on the results of crossover week. And then, of course, some additional calls to action regarding the anti-camping bill. And it is the week of bringing it home. So if you are registered to attend either virtually or in person our Bringing It Home Conference 2025, we really look forward to seeing you. One of our main calls to action this week is if you or a delegation from your continuum of care is attending this week's Bringing It Home Conference, or are interested in joining, we really want to encourage you to schedule a meeting with your state senators while you're in Raleigh to educate your senator and or their staff about the effectiveness of your work at ending and not just hiding homelessness as the state sanctioned encampment bill would do. This is House Bill 781, which passed the House last week. So a Senate version of the bill is set to come out and be discussed. So we want to make sure that they hear directly from you why the Housing First model matters, why your work matters, and why it's an actual solution to ending homelessness. Some other organizational updates or federal updates, millions of dollars in HUD funding remain trapped in this legal limbo. And so we have a link to a Next City article about the different lawsuits happening and how that impacts our housing and community development dollars. Also, beginning June 2nd, the CDFI fund is going to pause the acceptance of any new certification applications. And moving on to state and local updates, last week was a really hectic week. It was crossover week, and 375 out of the almost 1,800 bills that were introduced this session made the crossover list last week. We have linked the full crossover list for you in the call notes, and we're continuing to keep an eye on a number of these bills, including the Cicero Institute funded and backed anti-camping bill HB 781, which again passed the House last Wednesday. To take a look at the major bills that made the deadline and are still under consideration, we're linking a document in the call notes for you that shows all the bills that are still eligible for legislation. Just to give you an overview and refresher on 781, this is a bill that sets out to ban public camping and effectively criminalizes homelessness encampments. One of the things that the bill sponsors continuously said was that this is guidance. This provides guidance to local governments that this does not criminalize homelessness. This does not force local governments to do this. However, the bill effectively does criminalize homelessness because as a result of not following this legislation, if it were to pass, those sleeping outside because they have no home would be arrested, would then end up in the criminal justice system, thus further complicating their abilities to find housing and maintain housing. Again, this legislation is inspired by the Cicero Institute and aligns with their efforts nationwide to criminalize homelessness through sweeping state legislation, and this would only perpetuate the issue rather than solve the root cause of the problem, which we know to be homelessness. It also removes local autonomy on the matter and places unfunded mandates on the implementation of this type of rule. The legislation goes so far as to say the local government can identify a site, and however, that site has to at least have running water and bathrooms. Additionally, it must go through a certification program that the local health departments must certify. And the site can only be certified for a year. So it's an ongoing, continuous year after year process. So this is assuming that local governments even have a site that they're able to move people to, that they're able to then bear the cost of having the infrastructure of running water and restrooms. And all of these costs, if they choose not to do this site, folks would still be arrested. And once more, this ends up criminalizing homelessness. And it offers honestly no real guidance on actually how to address homelessness. And so we are joining our friends at the North Carolina Coalition on Homelessness in this call to action. And again, we encourage you, if you are attending Bringing It Home this week, or if you are already in the area or up for coming up to the area, or giving your state senator a call, and you're attending this week's Bringing It Home, or you just care at all, we really encourage you to speak with your state senators and educate them on your work, on the importance of investing in housing and investing in the solution that would really address homelessness rather than sweeping people to one side of town. This really is a really dangerous and unacceptable model for handling homelessness, and we know this. So really urge them to invest in resources and programs that actually address the root cause rather than establish additional legal barriers and challenges that would make it harder for those experiencing homelessness to find and sustain housing. For a full list of talking points, we're going to add some resources in the call notes for you to look out for. And we also ask that you check in and check out some of the links and the summaries that we have in the call notes about the appropriations process. Now that crossover has passed, the House members are shifting their focus this week to the budget for the next biennium, which is supposed to begin on July 1st. We are expecting the House proposed budget to be significantly different from the Senate's proposed budget. And so more to come on that as we learn more. On the disaster recovery front, yesterday, the Governor's Advisory Committee on Western North Carolina Recovery met in Boone to provide updates on their process and on their progress. Once HUD certifies the state's financial controls for the Community Development Block Grant Disaster Recovery, or CDBG-DR program, the state can sign the grant agreement and begin committing the $1.4 billion in federal recovery dollars. This again means that we still do not have the money. The state's CDBG-DR action plan largely focuses on addressing the long-term housing needs in the region through the development of new affordable multifamily units, homeownership opportunities for low and middle income families, as well as the repair and rehabilitation of owner-occupied housing, as well as private roads and bridges. The North Carolina Department of Insurance is hosting a free insurance assistance drop-in session on Wednesday, May 14th. So this is tomorrow for our friends in Western North Carolina from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. at the Asheville area of Chamber of Commerce in the Home Trust Room. This is on the first floor at 36 Montfort Avenue. The Department of Insurance, their regional directors, Ken Green and Kirby Rosh, will be on hand to help businesses and individuals navigate their different insurance challenges. We have several other local headlines as well as reports, resources, and events for you all to check out. One piece, very timely, there is a piece in the Raleigh News and Observer highlighting that Wake County's homeless population is growing, and more than 150 of the individuals in that group are children. We also are lifting up the Charlotte leaders are hosting a faith community mixer in order to boost affordable housing solutions. And this really aligns with the trend of churches and other community organizations that are jumping back into community development work and trying to be a part of the solution. Under reports and resources and events, a few reports to check out. There is a database hosted by the National Conference of State Legislatures on looking at the different housing and homelessness legislation that is happening around the country. And then there's also a great tool from Novogradac looking at how they updated the historic tax credit mapping tool and locating those sites might be good and helpful for advocacy. There are also a few webinars and events that we would like to lift up for you all. Today, actually, from 2 to 3:30, there is a webinar hosted by the National Community Reinvestment Coalition, or NCRC, talking about manufactured housing and how it could be one of the answers to affordability challenges in your community. Our friends at the North Carolina Budget and Tax Center are hosting a webinar tomorrow evening from 7 p.m. to 8:30. And this is part of their Making Connections webinar series, and it's going to dive into the state budget process, as well as the proposals that are currently on the table. And then it will also explore how the different federal decisions are shaping our state funding, our everyday lives, and give you the tools and different pieces of information to activate your networks. The North Carolina Center for Nonprofits is hosting what I know will be a great webinar as well on Friday from 1 to 2:30 p.m. So if you're not attending, bringing it home, check this out. I believe there will be a recording. There is going to be a webinar around state public policy developments and how they affect nonprofits. Again, this is Friday, May 16th from 1 to 2:30, hosted by the North Carolina Center for Nonprofits. There is another webinar happening on understanding short-term rentals, hosted by Housing Solutions Lab, happening Thursday, May 29th. So that's not this week or next week, but the following. There's going to be an APA, American Planning Association, North Carolina, Charlotte area planners meetup this Thursday on May 15th in Charlotte. And then the NCCDA and Frank Spring Conference is happening from May 21st to the 23rd at the Embassy Suites by Hilton in Charlotte, Concord. The KHEC conference is June 3rd through the 4th. So if you are registered or you're planning on going, I will see you there. Registration for this closes May 19th, so that's next week. The National Conference on Ending Homelessness is having their conference on June 30th through July 2nd in Washington, D.C. That often sells out, so if you are able to go, definitely check it out. And then there will be a Bipartisan Policy Center Summit on Housing Supply on June 18th in Washington, D.C. as well. That's all we have for you today. Again, very busy week. Please make sure to check out the call notes this week for talking points and other resources about the unauthorized public camping and sleeping legislation that we are firmly against. And if you are coming to Bringing It Home, we can't wait to see you and connect with you further. I hope you all have a great rest of your week, and we'll talk to you next time.